Some smiles are weapons. Some heirs are killers. When they collide, empires burn. Aleisha Brandy's smile could disarm anyone except the tattooed devil in a pinstripe suit who just became her boss. Gu Wan didn't return to Los Angeles to make friends. He came to claim his blood-soaked inheritance and crush anyone standing in his way. But when his uncle's betrayal turns deadly and corporate warfare spills into the streets, the hotel heir with ice in his veins and the employee with fire in her heart discover they're each other's only ally in a game where losing means death. She sees past his monster. He sees past her mask. Together, they're either unstoppable or doomed. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. I have missed you all. Missed all the experiences we've had together. It's been a rough ride, but trust me, we're getting everything back and running. So stick around. I need your support on YouTube now more than ever. Thank you specially for sticking around to this very moment. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now, back to the story. The memo arrived at 6 a.m., cold and clinical as the man who'd signed it. 32 positions eliminated, effective immediately. Aleisha read it twice in the break room, her coffee growing cold in her hands as colleagues' voices rose around her. Panic, anger, disbelief. Maria from housekeeping had 3 kids. Darnell in maintenance was 2 years from retirement, and Gu Wan, barely 3 days into his reign as heir apparent, was cutting them loose like dead weight. "We can't just accept this," Aleisha said quietly, and 20 pairs of eyes turned to her. The smile that usually disarmed difficult guests was nowhere in sight. "We organize, document everything. If there are labor violations, we fight back legally. If there aren't, we make him see what he's actually losing." Within hours, she'd coordinated a shadow network, staff sharing information through encrypted messages, documenting their irreplaceable institutional knowledge, preparing contingencies. She was so focused on the resistance that she didn't notice Gu Wan watching her through his office's one-way glass, his expression unreadable as she moved through the lobby like a general rallying troops. He'd been tracking the assassination attempt's digital footprints when his head of security flagged unusual staff communication patterns. But instead of a conspiracy, he found Aleisha Brandy, the woman whose smile he'd wanted to shatter, demonstrating strategic thinking that rivaled his own. Her personnel files revealed something else: hospitality management degree with honors, business courses at night, meticulously detailed proposals for hotel improvements that had been ignored by previous management. She wasn't just an employee, she was a leader trapped in the wrong role. Their confrontation came on day 3. Aleisha bypassed his assistant and walked straight into his office, laying a bound presentation on his desk. "Your cuts will save $2 million annually. They'll cost you $8 million in operational efficiency, guest satisfaction, and institutional knowledge. I've itemized everything." Gu Wan leaned back, studying her. The smile was gone, replaced by something sharper, dangerous even. He liked it. "You think like an owner." "Maybe because I should be one." The words hung between them, audacious and true. He made a decision that surprised even himself. "There's a traitor in this hotel, someone who let assassins through security, someone feeding information to my enemies. Find them and I'll reconsider the restructuring, all of it." Alicia's eyes narrowed. "Why me?" "Because you see things others don't, and because—" He paused, something flickering across his usually impassive face. "I need someone I can trust who has no reason to be loyal to me yet." She should have refused, should have walked away from whatever deadly game he was playing. Instead, she extended her hand. "1 week, then we renegotiate everything." His grip was firm, his skin warm against hers. Deal. That night, surrounded by security footage and personnel files in a commandeered conference room, Aleisha froze the playback. The face on screen made her stomach drop. Someone they'd both trusted, someone with access to everything. She reached for her phone to call Gu Wan, just as his own phone lit up with a message that made his blood run cold. Emergency board meeting called by his uncle tomorrow morning. Motion to declare him unfit to lead. The war had truly begun. The clock in Guwan's office read 3:17 a.m. when Aleisha finally looked up from the spreadsheets, her eyes burning. 4 nights of this, building the case against his uncle while he prepared his defense for the board. The penthouse office felt smaller each evening, the air between them thickening with something neither acknowledged. She found him on the balcony, still dressed in his shirt and slacks, staring at the Los Angeles skyline like it held answers. He hadn't slept. She knew because she'd heard him pacing, heard the sharp intake of breath that meant another nightmare had dragged him back to whatever violence haunted him. "You should rest," she said softly. "Can't." His voice was raw, unguarded in the pre-dawn darkness. "Every time I close my eyes, I see my father. Disappointed, always disappointed." Aleisha moved beside him, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "My mother cleaned hotels for 20 years so I could manage one. Every smile I give costs her sacrifices I can never repay." He turned to look at her then. Really look. Her face was bare of the professional mask, exhaustion etched in the set of her jaw, the weight she carried visible in ways the lobby lights never revealed. "Why do you smile so much?" "Same reason you don't. Protection." Something shifted in his expression. Recognition, maybe, or longing. His hand moved toward her face, hesitated, then fell away. The moment shattered. By morning, his coldness had returned, impenetrable as steel. Aleisha threw herself back into the investigation with almost desperate focus. The numbers told a story once you knew how to read them. Shell companies, offshore accounts, payments that lined up perfectly with whistleblower disappearances. Guwan's uncle had been bleeding the hotel for years, using Mafia muscle to keep people silent. She'd found their smoking gun. "This will destroy him," she said, sliding the evidence across Guwan's desk. "Professional, distant, safe." "Good work," he replied, equally measured, but his eyes told a different story, burning with something that had nothing to do with corporate warfare. They maintained the charade for exactly 45 minutes, until the parking garage. The enforcer came from behind the SUV, fast, brutal, a blade glinting under fluorescent lights. Guwan moved like violence made flesh, every strike precise and devastating. But there were 2 of them, and when the second man got behind him with a wire, Aleisha stopped thinking. The extinguisher was heavy in her hands, heavier when she swung it into the man's skull. The crack echoed. He dropped. Guwan dispatched the other with a vicious efficiency that should have terrified her. Instead, covered in someone else's blood, breathing hard in the chemical fog from the discharged extinguisher, she met his eyes and saw her own wild energy reflected back. "You're insane," he said, his voice rough with something that wasn't fear. "You're welcome," she replied, and didn't step back when he moved closer. Didn't stop him when his hand finally touched her face, thumb tracing her jaw with a gentleness that contradicted the violence still crackling in the air around them. The kiss didn't happen, not yet, but the promise of it hummed between them like an electric current as sirens wailed in the distance and their carefully constructed walls began to crumble. The security detail appeared the next morning. 2 stone-faced professionals who shadowed Aleisha from her apartment to the hotel. She cornered Guwan in his office before noon, fury barely contained. "I don't need babysitters." "You need to stay alive." His tone brooked no argument, but something flickered in his eyes. "Humor me." She should have fought harder. Instead, she found herself oddly comforted by his concern, even as she maintained her protests for principle's sake. The days blurred together in a haze of proximity. Working dinners became actual dinners, strategy sessions punctuated by stories that had nothing to do with business. He told her about Seoul, the weight of expectations that felt like drowning. She told him about her first day at the hotel, how she'd practiced her smile in the bathroom mirror until it looked genuine. Their hands brushed, reaching for the same document. His fingers lingered on her shoulder when he leaned over to check her screen. Every touch was electric, deliberate, impossible to ignore. The annual gala arrived like a reckoning. Aleisha had attended before, always in uniform, always serving. Tonight, she descended the grand staircase in burgundy silk that clung to her curves, her natural hair styled in elegant twists, and the entire ballroom seemed to pause. But she only had eyes for one man. Gu stood among board members and investors, perfectly tailored in black, his tattoos just visible above his collar, danger wrapped in sophistication. When he saw her, his conversation faltered mid-sentence. She watched him work the room afterward, all charm and calculated power, and understood why people feared and followed him in equal measure. He was magnificent. He found her on the balcony an hour later, the city lights competing with the champagne glow in her blood. "You're stunning," he said simply, no guard in his voice. "You're not so bad yourself." Her smile, the real one, the one she'd started saving just for him, made his breath catch. He moved closer, his hand cupping her face with devastating tenderness. "Aleisha, Gu, just the man we need." His uncle's voice cut through the moment like a blade. Board members flanked him, their expressions calculating as they took in the intimate scene. "We were discussing your priorities. Perhaps you're too distracted for leadership?" The trap closed around them. Guwan's face went blank, every emotion shuddering behind cold calculation. When he spoke, his voice carried across the balcony with cruel clarity. "Ms. Brandy was just leaving. She seems to have forgotten the professional boundaries appropriate for staff." The words hit like physical blows. Aleisha felt her own mask slam into place, but not before he saw the hurt flash across her features. "Understood, Mr. Gu," she said, her tone perfectly empty. She walked away with her head high, every step measured, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. Guwan watched her go, his uncle's satisfied smile in his peripheral vision, and hated himself more than he thought possible. The charges came 2 days later: embezzlement, falsification of records, corporate espionage. Every piece of evidence Aleisha had gathered against his uncle, now twisted to implicate her. She stared at the arrest warrant in disbelief, finally understanding the true cost of getting close to Guwan's world. The whispers started immediately. Aleisha walked through the hotel lobby, her lobby, where she'd built trust over years, and saw only averted eyes and suspicious glances. Maria wouldn't meet her gaze. Darnell actually stepped away when she approached. The evidence was damning, meticulously constructed to paint her as the architect of the very crimes she'd uncovered. Guwan's silence was the cruelest cut. No statement, no defense, nothing. Just cold corporate distance while her world imploded. His calls went straight to voicemail. His texts, carefully worded, probably monitored, she deleted without reading. If he'd really cared, he would have stood beside her publicly. His silence was answer enough. She worked alone, driven by fury and heartbreak in equal measure. The financial records that had exposed his uncle's embezzlement became her roadmap backward, following money trails to their source. 3 sleepless nights later, she found it. Medical records, toxicology reports that had been buried, payments to a coroner. Guwan's father hadn't succumbed to a heart attack. He'd been murdered, slowly poisoned over months by the brother he'd trusted. The uncle had orchestrated everything, the death, the succession crisis, framing her to eliminate Guwan's closest ally. The police detective she'd contacted looked at her evidence with dead eyes. "Interesting theory. We'll look into it." She knew that tone. He was bought. Desperation made her reckless. She used the security codes she'd memorized, slipped past guards she'd befriended before they'd turned on her, and broke into Guwan's penthouse like a thief. He was standing at the window when she entered, as if he'd been expecting her. "You threw me away," she said, voice shaking with rage. "Made me believe—" Her voice cracked. "I was protecting you." He turned, and she saw the devastation in his face, the sleepless nights that matched her own. "I don't need your protection. I need your trust." She shoved the evidence at his chest. "Your father was murdered. Your uncle killed him, and I found this alone because you abandoned me." His control shattered. He grabbed her wrist, pulled her close, and kissed her with all the fury and fear he'd been containing. She kissed back just as desperately, months of tension and longing igniting into something that consumed them both. They collided against walls, tore at clothes, each touch erasing the distance he'd forced between them. Later, tangled in his sheets, with the city lights painting patterns across their skin, the confessions came. His Mafia ties weren't severable. Blood oaths, family debts, a world where love was weaponized. Her fear wasn't of danger, but of disappearing, becoming an accessory to his life instead of the architect of her own. "I can't lose myself in you," she whispered against his chest. "I don't want you lost. I want you whole, beside me, not behind me." She looked up, searching his face. "Your uncle will use this, use us." His expression went cold, dangerous in ways that should have frightened her, but didn't. "Let him try. I'll burn it all down before I let him hurt you again. The hotel, the inheritance, everything." She believed him. The absoluteness of his vow, the violence barely leashed in his voice, it terrified her because she knew he meant it, and because she'd do the same for him. Tomorrow would bring consequences. Tonight, they held each other, like drowning people clutching lifelines, and pretended the world couldn't touch them here. Moving into Gu-won's penthouse felt like crossing a border into foreign territory, all glass and steel and minimalist luxury that revealed nothing of the man who lived there. Aleisha claimed the second bedroom as her war room, spreading evidence across every surface, building the case that would either save them or destroy everything. They worked in tandem now, no more pretense of distance. She saw him at 4 a.m. when nightmares dragged him awake, watched him pace the living room trying to outrun ghosts. He saw her practice her smile in the mirror before difficult calls, armor she consciously constructed each morning. The vulnerability they shared made them dangerous together. Her operational brilliance merged with his calculated ruthlessness created something his uncle hadn't anticipated. But visibility had costs. The photos hit the tabloids within days, the embezzler and the heir sharing late-night takeout on his balcony. His uncle's message arrived that same evening, a video of Tasha, Aleisha's best friend since college, bound and terrified. "Withdraw by Friday, or she dies." Gu-won was already reaching for his phone, ready to surrender everything. Aleisha caught his wrist. "No, we go nuclear. The shareholders' meeting is in 5 days. We expose him there, publicly, irrevocably. He can't kill her if the whole world is watching. It could destroy the hotel, our reputation, stock prices. Better than letting him win." Her voice was steel. "We burn it down and rebuild, or we let him take it without a fight. Choose." He chose her, chose them. The preparations consumed them, compiling evidence, preparing presentations, coordinating with lawyers and media. But in stolen moments, Aleisha worked on something else. A detailed business plan for a boutique hotel, complete with financial projections and design concepts. Her dream, mapped out in careful detail. Gu-won found the documents on the third night, left open on her laptop. His face went carefully blank. "Planning your exit?" She looked up from the evidence files, exhausted and beautiful and infuriatingly independent. "I'm planning a future. Maybe you're in it, maybe you're not, but I won't lose myself, not even for you." The words could have been a knife between his ribs. Instead, they cracked something open. His whole life, people had wanted to be absorbed into his world, his power, his money, his darkness. Aleisha wanted to stand beside him as an equal, building her own empire as if she helped him defend his. "Then let's build it together." He moved closer, taking her hands. "Partners, equal partners. Your vision, my resources. 50-50 on everything." She searched his face, looking for the trap, the angle, found only sincerity. "You've never shared power with anyone." "I've never loved anyone before." The confession came easier than he'd expected. "Loving you means wanting you whole, not owned." Aleisha felt something unlock in her chest, the fear she'd been carrying that choosing him meant choosing captivity. "Equal partners," she repeated, testing the words. Then stronger, "in everything."
They sealed it with a kiss that promised collaboration, not consumption. When her phone buzzed with another threat from his uncle, they faced it together, two opposing forces that had become an unstoppable alliance. Friday was coming. The war would be public, brutal, potentially devastating, but they'd face it as equals, and that made all the difference.
The attack came at dawn. Aleisha woke to Gu-won's phone exploding with alerts, armed men in the lobby, guests screaming, his security team pinned down. Then her own phone, a photo of her mother's house, crosshairs superimposed over the front door. The message was clear. "He's insane," Gu-won breathed, already moving, pulling on clothes with mechanical precision. "I have to end this. I'll give him what he wants." "And tomorrow he kills us anyway." Aleisha was right behind him, adrenaline sharpening everything to crystal clarity. "You know how this works." The news broke within the hour. Leaked documents showing Gu-won's alleged connections to organized crime, money laundering, violence. Fabricated, but convincing. His phone rang constantly. Board members, lawyers, media. Each call chipped away at the man she'd come to know, bringing back the cold creature who'd first walked into the hotel. She found him on the balcony at noon, staring at nothing. The hostage situation had escalated. 20 guests, his uncle's demands broadcast to every news channel. Surrender the hotel, confess to the crimes, or people would die. Gu-won's face was a mask, emptied of everything but calculation. "You're not your father," Aleisha said quietly, moving beside him. "You're not your uncle. You're Gu-won, the man who protected me when he didn't have to, who listened when he could have dismissed me, who wants to be better than what they made him." His jaw clenched. What if better isn't enough? What if I'm exactly the monster they want? Then I'm the fool who loves a monster. She took his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. "But I don't believe that, and neither do you." Something cracked in his expression. His hands covered hers, and for a moment he was just a man, terrified and desperate. Then his eyes sharpened with new purpose. "The security center. If we can access it during the chaos, broadcast everything." "Every screen in the building," Aleisha finished, understanding dawning. "Shareholders are already gathering. Media is outside. We expose him to everyone at once." "It's suicide. The hotel is a war zone." "Good thing I know every service corridor and maintenance shaft in that building." Her smile was fierce. "And you know how to fight." They moved through the hotel like ghosts, Aleisha navigating passages she'd memorized over years, while Gu-won neutralized threats with brutal efficiency. Close calls blurred together, a guard's flashlight sweeping past their hiding spot, gunfire echoing through marble halls, Aleisha's hand in his as they ran. The security center door was unlocked. Wrong. Everything in Gu-won screamed trap, but they were out of options. Inside, his uncle stood beside the surveillance station, gun steady in his hand. "You always were too sentimental," the older man said almost sadly. "Loving her made you weak." "No," Gu-won stepped forward, placing himself between the gun and Aleisha. "It made me strong enough to stop you." His uncle fired. Gu-won moved. The bullets sparked off metal as they collided in vicious combat, decades of training and rage unleashed. Behind them, Aleisha's fingers flew across keyboards, uploading evidence to every display system in the building. Another gunshot. Someone screamed. The screens flickered to life with proof of murder, embezzlement, conspiracy, and blood bloomed across white marble like accusation. The second shot was meant for Aleisha. Gu-won saw his uncle's aim shift, saw the finger tighten on the trigger, and moved on instant. The impact spun him sideways, white-hot pain exploding through his shoulder as he went down hard against the console. "Predictable," his uncle sneered, advancing with the gun still raised. "You always." Aleisha hit him like a hurricane. Every dirty trick Gu-won had taught her in the penthouse, every self-defense move demonstrated during late-night paranoia, channeled through desperate love and fury. She went for his eyes, his throat, the gun. They crashed into the surveillance equipment in a tangle of violence that was nothing like the accommodating employee who'd smiled through 1,000 difficult guests. The gun clattered across the floor. Aleisha kicked it away just as police flooded through the door. Hotel staff had seen the broadcasts, called every authority they could reach. On every screen in the building, evidence played on loop. Murder confessions, financial crimes, conspiracy. Shareholders in the ballroom watched in horror. Media outside captured everything. Aleisha ignored the chaos, dropping beside Guwan as blood pooled beneath him. "Don't you dare die on me," she demanded, pressing her hands against the wound. Her smile, that famous, irresistible smile, finally cracked, tears streaming down her face. "Not when I just found you." His fingers found hers, slick with blood. "Stubborn woman," he whispered, and passed out. The hospital hours blurred into an eternity of sterile waiting rooms and uncertain prognoses. Aleisha refused to leave, even when dangerous-looking men in expensive suits arrived. Guwan's associates, Mafia connections she'd known existed but never faced directly. They could have blamed her, eliminated the complications she represented. Instead, the eldest bowed slightly. "He changed for you, became something better than what we made him. We respect that." When Guwan finally opened his eyes 3 days later, his voice was rough. "The hotel? Saved. The shareholders voted you CEO. Your uncle's in federal custody." Aleisha leaned forward, exhausted and radiant. "But if you think I'm staying as an employee after all this, you're still concussed." His laugh hurt his wounds, made him wince and grip her hand, but he couldn't stop. "What do you want?" "Partnership, real partnership. New boutique hotel venture. My vision, your resources, equal ownership." VP of operations would... "Not enough." Her voice was firm. "I want to build something that's mine." He studied her face, seeing the warrior who disarmed his uncle, the dreamer who'd never stopped planning her future. "Then let's build something that's ours. 50-50 split, joint decision-making, your name on everything. 60-40, I'm bringing the vision and operational expertise. 55-45, and I negotiate the financing. Deal, but I choose the location. I approve the architect. We both approve everything." Their argument was interrupted by kissing, careful of his IV lines and bandages, tasting like victory and promises. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Aleisha's smile was genuine, not armor, not performance, just joy. "Partners," she said. "In everything," he confirmed, pulling her closer despite the protest of his healing shoulder. "Forever." Outside the hospital window, Los Angeles glittered with possibilities. Two empires waiting to be built by two people who'd learned the true strength wasn't standing alone. It was standing together, equal and unbreakable. Recovery was slower than either of them wanted. Guwan pushed physical therapy with the same ruthless focus he'd brought to corporate warfare, but his body had limits even his will couldn't override. Aleisha caught him wincing over laptop screens, convinced him to delegate more, and implemented her staff empowerment proposals throughout King Hotel while he healed. The changes were transformative. Employee committees, profit sharing, transparent communication, ideas that had gathered dust under previous management became policy under their partnership. Guwan's reputation shifted gradually from terrifying heir to visionary leader, though the dangerous edge remained. When a supplier tried to exploit the transition period, one cold meeting with Guwan reminded everyone exactly who they were dealing with. Their boutique hotel design consumed Aleisha's creativity. She spent weeks obsessing over details, the curve of the lobby staircase, whether to use marble or limestone, the exact shade of gold for fixtures. Guwan would find her at 2 a.m. surrounded by fabric swatches, arguing with herself about thread counts. "The ivory or the cream?" she demanded, holding up samples that looked identical to him. "Whichever one lets you come to bed." "This is important." "So is sleep." But he sat beside her anyway, offering opinions he didn't have on textiles until she laughed and kissed him and finally chose the cream. Meeting families was its own adventure. Aleisha's mother took one look at Guwan's tattoos and expensive suit and said, "You hurt my daughter? I don't care how many bodyguards you have." He'd bowed respectfully and promised he wouldn't. She'd fed him 3 helpings of jollof rice and declared him acceptable. His Mafia associates were hilariously protective, treating Aleisha like a beloved niece who'd civilized their wayward nephew. "She's good for you," one said approvingly. "Makes you less likely to commit murder." Gu Wan couldn't argue. But healing wasn't linear. He still woke, gasping from nightmares, instinctively reaching for weapons that weren't there. She still had moments of panic that she'd lost herself in his world, that her dreams had become secondary to his reality. Therapy helped. Individual sessions where they unpacked trauma, couples sessions where they learned to communicate through fear. When the Nakamura family tested his boundaries, expecting the old Gu Wan to respond to territorial encroachment with violence, he surprised everyone. Drawing on Aleisha's collaborative approach, he negotiated a profit-sharing arrangement that benefited both families. The meeting ended with handshakes instead of bloodshed. "You made me soft," he accused later, though his smile undermined the complaint. "I made you human," Aleisha corrected, kissing the scar on his shoulder. "There's a difference." The groundbreaking for Brandy and Gu, he'd lost the argument about name order, drew a crowd. Staff from King Hotel, Aleisha's family, his associates, architects, and investors. The site was modest compared to King Hotel's grandeur, but it represented something more important, their future, built together from nothing but vision and partnership. Photographers captured them at the ceremony, Aleisha in a hard hat and elegant dress, her smile genuine and radiant, Gu Wan beside her, arm around her waist, looking at her instead of the cameras. For once, they weren't performing or protecting, just being. "Think we'll make it?" she asked quietly, watching construction workers mark the foundation. "I already have," he answered, and meant it. The hotel would be beautiful, but what they'd built between them, trust, partnership, love, was already complete. The boutique hotel gleamed like a jewel box in the Los Angeles twilight, all brass fixtures and warm lighting, intimate where King Hotel was grand, personal where the original was palatial. Aleisha moved through the opening gala in a stunning emerald gown, greeting guests with her legendary smile. But everything had changed. She wasn't staff accommodating the powerful. She was owner, partner, the visionary who'd built this from dreams and determination. The boutique hotel gleamed like a jewel box in the Los Angeles twilight, all brass fixtures and warm lighting, intimate where King Hotel was grand, personal where the original was palatial. Aleisha moved through the opening gala in a stunning emerald gown, greeting guests with her legendary smile. But everything had changed. She wasn't staff accommodating the powerful. She was owner, partner, the visionary who'd built this from dreams and determination. Gu Wan watched her from across the room, making no effort to hide the pride and love in his expression. His coldness was reserved now for the business rival who'd suggested the hotel was charming for something so small. One withering look reminded the man exactly who he was dealing with. Gu Wan could still be dangerous when necessary. He just chose his battles differently now. An hour into the celebration, he found Aleisha on the rooftop garden they'd designed together, her vision of urban oasis meeting his preference for secure sightlines, compromise made beautiful. "I have something for you," he said, producing a small velvet box. Inside was a key, elegantly engraved. Not decorative, actual access. "Equal partnership in King Hotel," he explained. "You saved it. You should own part of it. 20% equity, full board seat, your name on everything." Aleisha stared at the key, emotions warring across her face. "Gu Wan, you earned it. Not because you're with me, but because you're brilliant and the hotel needs your vision." His voice was firm. "This isn't a gift, it's recognition." She kissed him, careful of her lipstick, not caring who saw. "I have something for you too." From her clutch, she produced rolled architectural plans, sleek, ambitious, international. Brandy and Goo, Tokyo location. I've been negotiating the site for 3 months. Think you can keep up with me? His laugh was genuine delight. You're insane. You love it. Hopelessly. He kissed her properly then, long and deep, tasting champagne and triumph and forever. They returned to the party hand in hand, the Mafia heir who'd learned that love was strength, not weakness, and the dreamer who'd learned to demand her worth without apology. Guests raised glasses to the hotel's success, but Gu Wan and Aleisha raised theirs to each other. To empires built on trust, she offered, her smile radiant and real. To love that makes us stronger, he countered, his eyes soft in ways only she ever saw. They drank, crystal clinking in the warm night air. Around them, the hotel they'd built together glittered with promise, not just of profit or prestige, but of what two opposing forces could create when they chose partnership over power, collaboration over control. Staff they'd empowered mingled with investors they'd impressed. Aleisha's mother laughed with Gu Wan's associates. Old enemies had become cautious allies, and at the center of it all, two people who'd collided in hostility and forged something unbreakable. "I love you," Aleisha whispered against his shoulder as music drifted up from below. "I know," he replied, insufferably confident. "Cocky. You love it." "Hopelessly," she agreed, and pulled him into another kiss. The photographer captured them like that, hands clasped, her smile genuine, his expression unguarded, the hotel glittering behind them like a promise kept. Not an ending, but a beginning. Two empires, infinite possibilities, and a love that had survived bullets and betrayal to become something neither had dared imagine. Together, they stepped into their future, ready for whatever came next.